Welcome, everyone. I'm Susan Barashai, founder of C Admissions. And whether you're eyeing a top 10 business school or navigating your path forward, today's session is about purpose. And your why is more than an essay. It's the foundation of high impact applications. And that is the purpose of today's session that I'm extremely excited to share with you today. We're going to give you some concrete evidence, concrete data for you to leverage as you prepare your why. And of course, we're going to have a space for Q&A towards the end. So whichever platform you're joining us from, I encourage you to write your comments in the platform itself. Any comments that comes in through this live, we won't show on the screen. I will read it out loud. This way, we protect your name as it's being replayed on our YouTube channel. So hopefully you are ready. We have quite a bit of content to cover today, and I want to make sure that I am being mindful of course, everyone's time. So why don't we get started? So I'm sure you've heard this, that high GMAT, stellar resume, all of those can still lead to rejection. And there is a reason to that. Top MBA programs aren't just admitting talent, they're admitting conviction. Without a purpose-driven story, you are a well-decorated resume with no direction. And schools won't gamble on that. They want people who have conviction, know their why, and are purposeful with everything that they do. And the way you present this in your application will help you see what kind of contribution or what kind of conviction, or will help the admission team see what kind of conviction you have with your goals. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to talk about why defining your why is non-negotiable. We're going to talk about what adcoms are actually looking for. We're going to look at some biggest mistakes that applicants make, high achievers make even. The framework we use here at C Admissions with our clients to put together a compelling why. And of course, the live Q&A. So there's a Q&A segment that we're going to focus at the end. This is, of course, a tactical session. So grab your notepad, digital or otherwise. There are going to be insights you'll want to act immediately on. But of course, know that you can always go back and replay any segment of today's session. But before we dive any further, we have been increasing our audience, and some of you are new here. So just a quick introduction to who C Admissions is. C Admissions is a boutique MBA coaching firm focused on supporting applicants on a one-on-one basis. This is to provide applicants the opportunity to be authentically themselves while also taking into account what schools are looking for. We work with applicants through the entire journey, and we see ourselves as partners on that journey with you, which means we brainstorm with you, we navigate the challenges, we cheer you on when you feel discouraged with a lot of the work that is required to go through this process. And for that reason, we see ourselves as partners. I am the founder of C Admissions. There are two coaches here at C Admissions at the moment. And our purpose here is, and our motivation, both myself and Danae Anderson, are here to support applicants on that individual presentation of their own experiences. I come from a academic background that is, some of the schools that you guys are targeting. I've been doing an admission coaching for about 8 years now, and in this period of time, I have a 94% placement rate, which means that we've developed a proven process that works 94% of the time. So let's dive right in on what are the insights that we have gathered, we have refined over this period of time to make sure that we guide and continue to do so to guide applicants to make the most of their preparation and presentation to increase their chances of gaining admission. So as you can see, we're going to start with the biggest mistake applicants or high achievers make. So this slide may hit close to home for a lot of high performers. And if it's you, it's okay. You're definitely not alone in this process. So the first big mistake in this process of the application, especially for those who are targeting, this new cycle coming up, is chasing prestige. I've seen many talented applicants coming from McKinsey, Google, Goldman, and all other top institutions, top organizations, default to consulting after an MBA or transitioning to VC or PE, just because that's what the people around them are doing, or that's what the people around them are saying they should be doing. But when adcoms see goals with no personal conviction behind them, it's a red flag. The second trap is treating the MBA like a credential checkbox. I want to learn business fundamentals, grow my network, and pivot into leadership. Honestly, that is table stakes. Every applicant says that. It doesn't make you memorable or distinct to the admission team. I mean, even if you just re-listen to what I said, I want to learn business fundamentals, grow network, and pivot into leadership. It means nothing in terms of why you want to do those things. Why does it matter to you? Or why should the admission team care when they have so many other applicants equally impressive to you who are being more specific in their applications? And then finally, the most subtle mistake is confusing what you do with what you want. One of my clients was a product manager in fintech, and she kept saying that she wanted to be a better product leader. But when we dug deeper, what she really wanted was to drive financial inclusion to scale. That's a much more powerful story. So if you're nodding your head right now, that's good. Awareness is the first step in the process. So recognizing what it is that matters to you most, not just what it is that you're doing currently, is actually what moves this needle further in terms of being able to then go on and refine your why with more specificity. And we're going to help you do that today. So let's get really honest, however, for a moment. Most applicants think that the why MBA question is just about checking a box. I want to pivot careers. I want to learn business fundamentals and join a strong network. But the truth is, when adcoms read your why MBA, they're not evaluating your vocabulary. They're evaluating your judgment. They want to know if you've done the internal work. Are you someone who's self-aware enough to reflect on what you truly want? Not just someone who is coasting from analyst to associate to the next level of job, just essentially following the crowd of what other people say you should be doing. They're also testing your future vision. If you can't articulate where you're headed or what kind of leader you want to be, that signals actual risk, because schools aren't in the business of giving you time to figure that out. I mean, your recruiting starts before you step foot on campus. They want to invest in people who are already on a purposeful trajectory, and they know specifically why an MBA matters in that trajectory, in that pathway. Third, and this is key, they want to see you connect the dots. Your path has to logically build into your goals. If you've been in nonprofit fundraising and suddenly say you want to be a product manager at a climate tech startup, we need a rationale. Otherwise, it feels disjointed and it feels like you just picked a career out of a hat without any kind of backstory, any kind of personal experience and personal connection. And finally, they want to know why this program. why is Wharton or MIT Sloan or Kellogg or any of the schools that you are targeting essential to the bridge that you're looking to build? If you could achieve your goals without an MBA or with any MBA, then you really haven't done the strategic thinking that is necessary for you to differentiate yourself first and foremost, and then differentiate how the school is going to help you get there. The bottom line is why an MBA is a strategic question masked as a career goals essay. If you miss that nuance, your application can fall flat because everything in your application is tied to your why. Your resume, your essays, your letters of recommendation, everything is connected to your why. Now, let's really make this clear by sharing a there's a three-part formula to how you decide your why, or how you start crafting your why. So what drives you? This is your values and lived experiences, the change you want to create, and why this MBA, and why now. Why this MBA is specifically to why this MBA at this school. So let's make this real with a client story, because oftentimes stories, as you can tell, even in this process, stories is what helps you anchor your understanding of any kind of even formula when you put it into or when you communicate it. And the same thing in your own application. The admission team wants stories because that's how they can anchor their understanding of your intention based on stories. So I worked with a transgender applicant who had built a successful, very technical career at a FANG. They came to me saying they wanted to move into product through an MBA, but they weren't sure how to connect that to their personal story. They didn't want their identity to feel performative or like a separate diversity angle. So we started with these prompts or these ideas, and we looked at the kinds of projects they worked on, and there was some patterns that emerged by looking at these different segments. We started seeing that even in their technical work, they consistently focused on building inclusive experiences, content moderation, user safety tools, accessibilities. These weren't random experiences, even though to this candidate, they seemed like normal everyday life. They were deeply aligned with their lived experiences navigating the world as a trans person in environments that didn't always understand or support them. That clarity helped us frame their why with power and precision. They weren't just pivoting into product, they were on a mission to lead product teams that build safer, more inclusive technology that marginalized communities could use in a safe space. That's and that mission didn't come from nowhere. It came from the lived experiences that this individual had. There were their professional experiences and their personal experiences that led them here. We just helped them see those patterns, and the vision emerged very naturally from the process of actually thinking through what their experiences and what their lives have been. This experience led them to multiple offers, including Stanford Graduate School. So when I say that this formula, you want to start with this formula in terms of getting yourself going with your goals, with your why. I really mean it. Your why is already there. You already have it in your experiences. You just haven't given yourself the time and sometimes even the permission to sit with those experiences and make the connection and connect the dots. So the next question is, when do you do this? Should you start with your why when you start writing your essays? Should you start with your why now? The timing is actually oftentimes one of the most biggest mistakes I see clients making. They start by picking schools first based on ranking, geography, or where their colleagues went, or where the people around them says that they should go. Then they try to retrofit their goals and story to what the school wants to hear, or what they think the school wants to hear. But this is actually quite a backwards approach, which makes your process and your application much more challenging. Your why is the compass or the North Star that should give everything else and should guide everything else. Your school list, your networking conversations, your essays, the recommenders, even themselves, all of that is anchored on your why. So if you don't define your purpose first, you risk crafting a story that's reactive, that's not authentic, and admission officers can feel it. It comes off as generic or surface level. Also, when you're networking with students or alumni, what do you even ask them if you don't know why you want to do an MBA, why you're there? The vague questions can lead to vague answers, will lead to vague answers. And that's not really going to help you. You're going to waste a lot of time having conversation after conversation, feeling more confused than when you started. Also, the part of the network, in terms of building that network, starts in your pre-MBA journey. If you're showing up to those conversations without your why, you're going to sound like someone who is not really prepared. Even though this is not an interview at this stage, at SIA Admissions, we really like to take everything as you have to put your best foot forward at all times during this preparation process or during the application process. And doing that, even meaning showing up to your conversations with students and alums with this already established why, asking poignant questions, differentiates you from the next person. And it helps you build that bond even deeper because you have done the thinking necessary pre-joining the call. And then that call becomes much more impactful, much more meaningful, and also interesting, to be very frank. When it comes to essays, defining your why, after you start writing your essays, it's going to create actually quite a lot of friction, endless rewrites, total confusion. Nothing is going to feel like it fits perfectly. You're definitely going to waste your time spinning your wheels, trying to make your story sound compelling, because it's not, but it's actually not anchored in purpose, because you haven't given yourself time to actually do this effectively. So the best time, all of that to say, the best time to define your why is before everything else. The moment you get serious about applying, before you even open a school's website, that's when the inner work begins. And that's essentially how we even coach applicants through this process. I mentioned this is our process from the beginning. Once we get to know a person's story, the next thing that we work on is the why, because that informs everything else that we do. So how we do it at SIA Admissions. The first thing that we do is the timeline and story mapping. So we start walking through your full career, life timeline, not just your resume, by the way, because most people don't have everything that they need to be including in their resume to begin with. So it's really about transformative moment. What decisions did you make along the way to where you are today, and why did you make those decisions, whether conscious or unconscious? What patterns emerge? We're constantly looking for patterns. There are sometimes transformative moments that changed you, changed the way you think. Those are really important to us here at SIA, because that's what really helps us help you guide help guide you on that journey of understanding your why. And all of these elements helps us obviously identify the purposes, whether conscious or subconscious, that you have been drawing yourself towards, and the opportunities you've been saying yes to, that can help us build an anchor. Then we go with career strategy. This is when we zoom out and align your past, present, and future. We help you identify what's missing in your current trajectory and how the MBA is going to close that gap. But we also think beyond the MBA. What does that 10-year look like 10 years from now? And how, at the end of the day, is how do we reverse engineer your goals to make the narrative credible? This is the process of going through, defining your why. Obviously, one-on-one vision coaching. Our work is one-on-one here at CE Admissions. So this is where it gets really personal. We challenge clients with tough questions, and we are unapologetic. We dig into values, motivations, even the fears behind the choices that the clients make. And that's where purpose lives. It's not always comfortable, but it's where transformation happens. When it comes to essays, so after we've done this work and we look at schools and all of these different elements around it, obviously I'm oversimplifying this process because it's a lengthy process. We also are looking at the essay blueprint. We translate the goals, your why, into a strategy. Before we even write, we help you outline exactly what goes into each essay. We brainstorm the stories that you will be telling and what qualities we want to demonstrate based on all the information, all the data that you've shared with us along this period of time. There's a logic and intentionality, that's a tongue twister for me, behind every paragraph. This is not just essentially wordsmithing, it's really about making sure that you are showing the purpose, the driver that you have that moves you. One of the things that I love to share is that clients always tell us that the process feels like therapy meets career coaching meets storytelling. And that's exactly the point. It's deep, it's structured, and it clearly works based on our stats. I'm going to share another quick story. I know that we're getting close on time, so I'm going to be mindful of that. So this client came to me after 2 consecutive rejections. So he was in wealth management and said that he wanted to move into private equity, specifically infrastructure investing. So it sounded strategic, but there was no real depth. So the depth was missing. So we worked together to uncover the truth. He wasn't necessarily passionate about PE per se. What actually drove him was infrastructure itself. So how systems like transportation operates and how capital often connects poorly with execution in that space. So he was actually frustrated seeing short-term investor mindsets clashing with long-term needs of the infrastructure space. And that's where his purpose emerged. He wanted to be the bridge between the investors and the operators, ensuring capital that was being invested on these really important infrastructure deals the capital was used effectively to build a bridge between the two, to meet in the middle ground, essentially. So we framed this entire story. Instead of chasing prestige, he focused on operation strategy, which was leading infrastructure-backed businesses from within. This new narrative and purpose-driven, is very grounded and distinctive approach led him to join Columbia Business School. Now, this is the power of aligning your why with what truly matters to you, and how it connects to the admission with the admission team in terms of them wanting to back you because they believe in the vision that you are building for the future. So let's get a little bit practical. So if you're sitting here thinking, okay, I understand what the process looks like, what I need to do, I need to refine my purpose, right? I'm sure you have some kind of inclination, some kind of idea. But now the question is, where do you begin? These are the 3 prompts, the 3 questions that I want you to start answering. So first, what have what have you been repeatedly drawn to, especially if there's inconsistencies, if you look at your resume, or if there are consistencies. What is it that you have repeatedly been drawn to? Not just what you've done well, but what keeps showing up in your choices, in your conversation, even in your frustration. Is there a theme? Maybe you've always been drawn to underserved communities, or find yourself gravitating towards sustainability, even if it's not part of your current job. That is a signal that you want to identify. Second question is, what change would you champion if you have been given a platform, right? If you have a soapbox and a microphone, what would you be championing? Forget about what's practical or expected. This is really important. You don't build authentic visions with what's practical and what is expected. Obviously, there's practicality to feasibility. However, a real authentic why goes beyond the practical and the expectations. If someone handed you a microphone and said, what do you care about solving in the world? What would you say? What vision often, not even what, but that's really the vision that often reveals your why. If you are removing all barriers, all you're saying you can't do this, that happens all the time when we're making decisions. You're already looking at why it can't work. If you set that aside, what would you want to do? And third, what's missing right now that the MBA can help you access? It can be on many different domains in terms of what you need. So don't just think about technical skills, because I know oftentimes a lot of you do this. I want you to think broadly, various different domains, various different levers that you need in order to get to where you want to go. This helps ground your story and strategy. Maybe you're missing operational exposure, leadership development, access to specific industry, access to its network. Whatever it is, you need to connect the gaps directly to what the MBA offers so that your goals feel intentional and not exploratory. Exploratory is bad in the application process. And also remember that you don't need to have a perfect answer yet, but starting here is definitely going to put you at above or ahead of every 80% of the applicants who never really spend time digging deeper into their why. So what I suggest, the homework that I give you after this session or tonight over the weekend, is to take 30 minutes to an hour. Journal on these prompts. So come back and replay this. Journal on these prompts. And you're going to really be surprised at what surfaces when you give yourself the space without judgment to really think through and develop your thinking on this process. So if this resonated with you, if you realize that your goals need more clarity or that your story still feels surface level, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to connect. Your why is really the engine of your entire MBA application. It's what makes your essays magnetic, your interviews powerful, your school lists strategic. When you have a clear purpose-driven foundation, everything else becomes easier because it comes naturally. So we're currently booking clients for both round 1 and round 2, both myself and Anea. And our work is really one-on-one, deep and personalized. So if you're serious about building a standout application that's reflective or that reflects who you are and where you're going, then this is the time to start. You can use the link in the comment of whichever platform you're joining us from, or there will be a QR code in the next screen where you can book a consultation call to discuss further. Just know that this is for applicants who are ready to go beyond your resume polishing. It's for people who really want to lead their application with vision and intention. That makes for a standout application for a cycle we anticipate to be booming given the circumstances that we are in currently, because our process is quite rigorous and it's quite intentional. Okay. So let's open up for questions. I'm going to take 2 questions and let's see what we have. Hello, let's start. I like the excitement. Okay, so we're gonna go. Actually, I'm going to read a question that just came in the. Yes, we had given instructions on when you should be expecting this. The time frame when you submitted it, it's within that time frame that we will be receiving a response. Okay. All right, let's continue. So if I'm unsure about my post-MBA goals, should I wait to apply until I have more clarity? No, because the clarity is not going to come unless you spend time doing this. If you're applying to round one, if you're applying in round two, at this point, you need to start working on your post-MBA goals. That's the first part. And it doesn't get easier just by sitting and thinking about them. You have to actually take action. You have to write, you have to brainstorm, you have to stress test. That's when clarity comes into play. And in the process of even going through the application materials, you'll get clearer on your goals. You also need to recognize that you may have a goal today that might change tomorrow, and that is okay because you are an ever-evolving human with ideas that are changing. The world is also changing. So if you expect to have a perfect goal, then you're probably never going to apply. So don't wait, work on it, use the prompts that I gave in the previous slides to make sure that you are working through, fleshing them out. And if you need support, we're always here to guide you. Next question. I've worked in 3 industries already. How do I create clear, compelling narratives of why I now want an MBA? I think at this point, what I would say is really take the time to go through those questions. I know I sound a little bit like a broken record, but go through those questions, look for the patterns, look for the themes, especially if you worked in 3 different industries. There is a reason why you did it, and oftentimes it's not evident. When we work with applicants that have worked in multiple industries, we definitely need to take extra time to evaluate what is a theme that is coming across so that you can build a cohesive story across the board that ties everything together, that everything is purposeful. Because whether you were conscious or not of that purpose, it is actually, you have made decisions for specific reasons, and we just need to uncover them in this reflection, exploration period. So I would definitely encourage you to reach out and have a consultation with us to discuss, those next steps. All right, so that's the last question for today. I will be joining in about an hour, so at 11:30 Eastern time. At 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, GMAT Club. They're doing it at midday. So if you've been admitted, you're here, you've been admitted, and want to talk about scholarship negotiation, that's what I will be talking about. If you haven't been admitted, but you want to still learn about how to negotiate scholarship, definitely join. The link is on the screen, and I will be there for about an hour or so, depending on how many questions people have. Thank you again. And next week, we're going to talk about the return on investment for MBA, for business school, essentially. So is it worth it? Join us if you are in that process of thinking through. If you know someone who is considering, especially if they're going through all the turmoils that we're seeing, especially in government and different sectors, if someone is evaluating is an MBA for them or not, should they consider it, definitely share the event with them as well. Join us, or you can always watch the replay. So I will see you next week. Thanks again, and good luck with all the work that you're doing.